Bulls have officially exposed the harsh truth that they don't have what it takes to win at the highest level.
I think that day is over for Derrick Rose. I still think that he can come back and he can be great.
Clearly the best Chicago Bulls team ever. It is the greatest NBA team ever.
Michael Jordan helped revolutionize basketball in Chicago. He turned the Bulls into one of the most successful teams in league history, as well as one of the most popular. Despite all of that success in the 1990s, the Bulls have struggled massively in the 25 years since Jordan retired for the second time. So, is there any hope that the Bulls can win a title in the near future? And what has held them back from success in the 21st century? It is easy to forget that before they drafted Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls were not a very successful team. Since their inaugural season in the NBA in 1966, they had failed to make it past the conference finals, despite making it that far in the playoffs twice. In 1974, the Bulls got swept in the conference finals by the Kareem and Oscar Robertson's Milwaukee Bucks. A year later, they lost in 7 games to the eventual NBA champion Golden State Warriors, who were led by Finals MVP Rick Barry. The Bulls went to the playoffs just once in the 8 seasons before they drafted a kid out of North Carolina named Michael Jordan. As I'm sure you're aware, Jordan helped to turn around the results in Chicago, and he pretty much single-handedly turned the Bulls into one of the most successful teams in league history. The Bulls dynasty lasted for most of the 1990s, and they were pretty much unstoppable for 6 seasons. If it wasn't for Jordan trying to play baseball for a couple of years, there's a good chance that the Bulls would have won 8 titles in a row. But I don't think Chicago fans are too upset about winning 6 titles in 8 years. Suddenly, Chicago became the home of winning basketball, and it looked like they would be the dominant team for years to come. Even after Jordan retired for a second time in 1999, many people still believed that the Bulls would be able to rebuild and become a contender again very soon. With the Bulls' core being well into their 30s, Chicago couldn't get a huge amount out of Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman before they left. Chicago didn't have a huge amount of pieces for rebuilding, and so they struggled massively in the seasons after Jordan retired for the second time. Despite having 2000 Rookie of the Year Elton Brand, the Bulls went on a 4-year run of finishing last in the Eastern Conference, just after being the dominant team. They won just 13 games in the lockout-shortened season after Jordan retired, and were nowhere near the playoffs for a few years. But thanks to the development of 2 exciting youngsters in Ben Gordon and Luol Deng, the Bulls reached the playoffs again in 2005. Just a few years later, the Bulls looked like they had their next superstar. Derrick Rose was a homegrown talent who fell into the Bulls' lap in the 2008 NBA Draft. Rose won MVP in 2011 and led the Bulls to the top seed in the East for the first time since 1998. They might have lost to the Miami Heat in the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals, but this was a Bulls team that could finally compete for a title once again. But the following year saw Rose sustain a devastating knee injury in the first round of the playoffs after once again leading the Bulls to the 1 seed. Rose was never the same after that injury, and the core around him was not able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals again before Chicago began to rebuild. The last 5 years have been very tough for the Chicago Bulls. Despite signing former All-Star DeMar DeRozan and having plenty of top picks in the draft, the Bulls have had very little success in recent years. They have been to the playoffs just once since 2017, which came thanks to the 6th seed in 2022. Despite having an interesting big three of DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, the Bulls were no match for Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, who defeated them in 5 games. This season looks like another one where the Bulls will be stuck in the play-in. Chicago started off the season terribly, reaching 5-14 by the end of November. They have been able to turn things around slightly, and at the time of writing sit 9th in the Eastern Conference and will be playing in the play-in. The Bulls are a very long way away from reaching the playoffs, and they look unlikely to be contenders anytime soon. One thing that Chicago fans will be very aware of is that this is not a young team, with the Bulls having the 12th oldest roster in the entire league. 2 of their top contributors this season are well into their 30s, with superstar DeMar DeRozan currently in his age 34 season. Chicago is going to need to move on from DeMar and Nikola Vucevic pretty soon. The Bulls are likely to see their returns decrease in the next couple of years, and we have already seen the heights that these two can take this team. Chicago should try to get some value out of them quickly. It's not going to be easy to replace either player, considering DeRozan leads the team in points this year and Vucevic leads the team in rebounds this season. DeRozan is going to be a free agent this summer, and it would be a surprise if Chicago decided to hold on to him, whereas Vucevic has a contract with the Bulls for the next couple of years. The payroll issues that the Bulls have at the moment go deeper. The third highest scorer on the team is 26-year-old Lonzo Ball, who hasn't played a minute for Chicago since January 2022. He has a player option for next year, which he would likely take. The biggest earner on the Bulls at the moment is Zach LaVine, who has the 8th biggest contract in the league at the moment. Chicago are paying him more than players like Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, and Anthony Edwards are getting from their teams. It looks like a pretty tough contract, considering LaVine has barely played this season due to injury and will be 29 next season. A few different things have contributed to Chicago failing to contend over the last 20 years. For one thing, the team has been unlucky with injuries, having seen the career of MVP Derrick Rose shattered by a gruesome knee injury. Their highest draft pick in the 21st century was Duke guard Jay Williams, who suffered career-ending injuries thanks to a motorcycle crash just after his first season. The team drafted well in the 2000s, but haven't picked a future All-Star since Jimmy Butler in 2011. In recent years, their drafting has been particularly poor. Chicago took Wendell Carter Jr. 7th overall in 2018, 1 pick ahead of exciting young guard Colin Sexton, and 3 picks ahead of current MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chicago does not have a good history with major free agents. DeMar hasn't been able to get the Bulls past the first round of the playoffs, and Zach LaVine certainly doesn't look like a $200 million player. They have also recently stuck with head coach Billy Donovan, despite poor recent returns. While there rightfully is a lot of negativity around the Chicago Bulls at the moment, there are a few bright spots. With the injuries that Chicago has had, Kobe White has seen his minutes jump and has taken advantage of it. The 23-year-old is scoring at a proficient rate and could become an all-star level player for the Bulls in the next few years. 24-year-old Ayo Dosunmu is showing some promise this season, hitting threes at almost 40%. Patrick Williams looks like he could be a solid rotation piece for years to come, and the Bulls will have plenty of cap room to work with as long as they don't re-sign DeMar DeRozan. So maybe there is some hope for Chicago. If they are to win a title, then getting rid of a pretty average core would be the start. They haven't been bad enough to get a top draft pick in recent years, and so there's no point sticking with an aging team that can't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Billy Donovan's time in Chicago should likely be coming to an end, and if the Bulls want to get serious about getting back to the top, then they need to do a proper rebuild and set themselves up for success in the future. It's impossible for Chicago to reach the heights that they saw with Michael Jordan, but this city should be able to be proud of their basketball team, and that's certainly something that Chicago fans haven't said over the last 20 years. It would be nice for the Bulls to get back into contention while Jordan is still around, so that he can be there to watch Bulls fans enjoy success once again. But Father Time is ticking, and we don't see them getting a title anytime soon. It would be nice if they could pull it off, and we want to see Jordan reach well into his old age in life, thus giving Chicago a 40% chance of pulling off a title in Jordan's lifetime. The Bulls need to make some serious changes if they want to compete once again. But what do you think about the Chicago Bulls' chances in the future? Put your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.